Welcome back, guys. Today I got my partners here live in action. We're here in Playa Dominical for the Bitcoin property and valuations of Costa Rica. Welcome back to our talks that we do here. We try to do them every 2 weeks or so. Most of them are going to be virtual. I'm leaving this week to head over to Barcelona, so we'll be doing one from there next week, or probably somewhere on the 18th or something like that. Welcome back to Costa Rica
Great to be here and finally a
in
face-to-face
person.
podcast. Yes, because we have been in Mexico, in Vegas, you in Boston. So we're finally here in Dominical. And yes, the Vegas event was great because it was more institutional in my opinion. Many of the conversation were shaping the long-term future of, in this case, Bitcoin, in regarding applications for everything, for real estate, for finance, for example, Michael Saylor explaining their new vision for the strategy. Then Paolo, the CEO of Tether, explaining his vision more than just a simple stable coin. Eric Trump explaining what they are doing
The
with
token, yeah.
exactly regarding mining and why Bitcoin and the value of crypto. So super interesting. It was probably a 25,000 attendees
Wow.
plus all the live streaming.
Yeah, if you can believe I've actually never been. I was hoping to go this year with you, but it didn't work out. But I think you're right. I mean, one of the things I'm starting to notice is that, the Bitcoin conference used to be about Bitcoin, right? And it still is in a sense, but it's also now a lot more about applications, right? Is what you and I deal with a lot more as well in our inner days. So how can we tokenize certain things? How can we build it? There's a lot of talk around Costa Rica, which you guys were there for, Salvador, things like that. There's a lot of talk around communities in the Bahamas and areas where people are using it for more of a practical conversation now. But there's also really a play on the lending and then applications that go with Bitcoin. So it's not so much just the conversation, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin anymore. It's more of like, what can we put the application for Bitcoin in the community and in society and different things, which is really what our conversations are here about in Costa Rica as we kind of explore Latin America and the Bitcoin, conversation that we're doing further and things that you and I are doing. So, and it's also a change in regulations as they're coming up around the world, right? I mean, a lot of people look at Bitcoin still and they're scared. I mean, I think adaptation is still a real low. I don't know the numbers right now today. You might know better than I do, but I know that when I still talk to my parents or people like that, they're like, "Oh my God, Bitcoin, what are you doing?" The world's gonna end. I mean, I've got brokers and people in my office that they always buy Bitcoin when it starts going up, right? They start buying, and they're like, "Oh my God, it went down." And it's the same thing. People, it's just like a stock market. People aren't understanding exactly the fluctuations, and I think it's interesting that having you being there from Costa Rica and then having our other good friends, Paul and those guys that actually live in Dominical in this area, it puts a really good push to put it on the market where you've heard me say this before. I really feel Costa Rica has a really good opportunity to become a destination like Singapore was for tech, for companies, for things that come in and really even become, I'll put it out there, a stronger, call it Bitcoin or cryptocurrency market stabilization than Salvador. I just think that we have the community. I mean, I think that, when we talk about the luxury market of Costa Rica, we're being put on the map. I mean, Costa Rica is, becoming the luxury kind of tropical market that people are coming to from around the world, right? And it has everything from very high net worth luxury places to stay at, like the Four Seasons and different projects like the Zapatal project in Guanacaste, to mid range and things like that. So there's a little bit of something for everybody. But the beauty about Costa Rica is anywhere you go in Costa Rica right now, there's a community, right? You go to the mountains and you could use Bitcoin to buy things there. Not everybody, but I mean, in general, most stores and stuff, you're seeing that sign slapped up on the wall, and it's a really resourceful thing to have.
Yes, and well, in fact, my opening for the panel was the best regulation is no regulation. And why is that? Because we're explaining why Costa Rica is the best place on earth to live on Bitcoin. And there were people from El Salvador, from Dubai, from Thailand, Switzerland, that are the traditional hubs. And The best way to review this is take the regulation out for a second. Forget about regulation. So why Costa Rica? And it's exactly what you just described. I will add political stability. Blue zone is something really interesting because of
Yeah.
longevity, all the nature around. Now that we have in Middle East the war situation, I was talking with some people that lives in Dubai, and they were saying, "Hey, this is this is scary because
Yeah.
if this escalate, it's going to be complicated." And I was telling them, hopefully this doesn't happen, but even if there's a worldwide war here in Costa Rica,
Yeah, we're
nothing
in the
care,
middle.
nothing is going to happen. So all those elements make Costa Rica the best place, one of the best places to live globally. And when you talk about regulation, there's enough regulation here. For example, local taxation model. So every revenue you generate outside Costa Rica is
Mhm.
tax free. You have a investor visa. So all those elements are sometimes better than some type of regulation where, yes, they put a framework, but you got the political part, and it's better not to regulate than do it one way. For example, El Salvador, hey, legal tender, but no, now we can, it doesn't work. So roll back. Now it's not legal
Yeah.
tender. So that was more or less like the framework of the conversation there.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, I love that. The best regulation is no regulation. I mean, I watched the whole video of you guys there. You guys all being my friends. But I would agree with you. I mean, I think that Costa Rica is in a moment where, I mean, we're here. I've been here more than 30 years. I'm Costa Rican. I hold my passport. I've got family here. I've been here. You were born and raised in Costa Rica as well. And so the interaction of what's going on here compared to what we saw, 30 years ago, 40 years ago in our lifestyles here has completely changed. I mean, you drove up today from San Jose, which took you about 2.5 hours on a beautiful road, right? Through toll roads and things like that. So I do think it's the introduction as, one thing we always hear, oh, Costa Rica's become so expensive, but has it really become expensive? I mean, inflation has made everything expensive in the world. I think Costa Rica still, the lifestyle that we decide to live here has become, better than most in a sense. I mean, you could still get a great meal at a local little soda for a couple bucks and eat really healthy in Costa Rica, where you don't have a lot of that opportunity in different countries. And like I was saying in my first comment was that's everywhere in Costa Rica. You go to the mountains, you go to Escazú, you go to the Osa Peninsula, you go everywhere, and you really have this combination of nature and things coming together. So you know, we always talk about the big countries, Switzerland, we talk about Singapore. And, one of the questions always comes up to me that I think that you and I should discuss today is, could Costa Rica become the Singapore or Switzerland of Latin America, for digital assets and just in general for the banking systems? I mean, I think that being based in Costa Rica, you have the ability, like you said, to overlap into different countries. So I know that, for example, a lot of people in Costa Rica, we set up systems where they're kind of doing like a living will and a trust where they're holding their assets via a trust in Panama, right? That owns their shares in Costa Rica or their US corporations owning, depending where they want funds afterwards. They're still paying their income tax, they're still paying their property gains taxes, but it just matters where you want to shift funds to, or i.e., if you're buying within a cryptocurrency, if you want to put that money and put it back in Switzerland, you want to put it back in the US, or you want to put it in Canada, wherever you're going to, right? And I think Costa Rica has become a lot more acceptable as we go through that process. I mean, what are your gut feeling on the sense of us kind of becoming that, call it Singapore digital or Switzerland kind of haven for banking?
I mean, regarding digital assets, we have all the elements to achieve that, and especially because here in Costa Rica, the Bitcoin adoption is more bottom up. So
Yeah,
you see what we are doing regarding real estate transactions.
yeah.
You see what Bitcoin Jungle is doing for retail. You're able to buy
Yeah, that's a great
bananas,
comment.
coconut, exactly paying with Bitcoin. You compared it, for example, with El Salvador, that is the opposite. Is top down.
Yeah.
So the government do great marketing and everything, but um, the real economy, you see a circular economy, like for example, is happening here in Dominical where we are.
Yeah, interesting comment. I never thought about that. That's a great comment from bottom up. Like you said, best regulation is no regulation, and really the best use case purpose is almost right now in Costa Rica that you and I are familiar with is actually being used exactly what Bitcoin in its essence was created for, right? And so the bottom up, I never thought about that. It's a great comment to
That
put it
that
that way.
that, that comment I heard it from Lee from Bitcoin
Oh no
Manual.
way! Well, that's
Yeah.
well, we're gonna Lee. We got to get Lee in one of the comments in one of
Yes,
these
yes.
podcasts as well. But I really like that actually because you're right. I do think that as we travel around, I mean, you and I both keep up to date on a lot of stuff that's happening in the market in Latin America, through Mexico, through here with Bitcoin on different applications or Ethereum, or whatever, any kind of cryptocurrency. I mean, I'm always sending you thing on Instagrams for the new, I found this guy in line that's doing this. And I feel like right now, talking about applications, there's multiple applications that are starting to come out via Bitcoin, via Ethereum, via all these different kind of coins and stuff in Latin America, and you're starting to see a lot of that being implied on Instagram and these different places. A lot of it is, who knows what's good and bad in there. You got to kind of weed through the stuff. But I have noticed since that you and I have been doing our podcast that via my LinkedIn or via my Instagram, I'm getting a lot of contacts. So I mean, I was reached out by several companies over the past 2 months, and I've had probably 10 or so, Zoom meetings with different applications of tokens that they're doing in Costa Rica, tokenization for protection of larger farms in the Osa Peninsula, kind of like the carbon credit. I have another application that reached out for payment programs, things like that. So, I mean, I do think that we're starting to see really the use plan come into play. And, maybe our next step in our podcast is that we start to invite a couple of these people to have these conversations because I think that the door is really opening up in a more absorption rate, right? Because the government in Costa Rica is not particularly still 100% accepting it by any means at all, but they're also not accepting it, right?
Yes, I mean, and that's a good point because, for example, Bitcoin and digital assets in Costa Rica, they are not illegal. So you're able to use them free, but they are not a legal tender. So
Yeah.
that's something different. But other thing that happened, I received this news yesterday, is that they just approved that the fintech license in Costa Rica that is called Artículo 15
Yeah, I read that.
will have an specific type of Artículo 15 for crypto companies or digital assets. So now there's a framework. If you're an exchange, for example, locally here in Costa Rica, where you have the type of license to apply because it was too open until
Yeah.
now. So that's a really good sign
Well,
that
and in
this is
simple
happening.
in simple terms, and that for people out there, I mean, what that would open us up to is that certain banks in Costa Rica's could actually get that licensing to a certain extent and be able now, because right now it's really hard to buy in Bitcoin and put that or sell in Bitcoin and put that money into a bank in Costa Rica. And most time we're having to go through an escrow or put it somewhere else, right? And that would probably open the banks up to allow then funding from a sale of property to property through Bitcoin to go into the banks, correct?
More than banks, I see fintechs that are connected to the Central Bank of Costa Rica,
Oh.
and they are able to issue IBAN accounts. So, for example, you have your Bitcoin, you exchange it to dollar, you fund the IBAN account
Hmm.
you have in your fintech app, and then you're able to do local wires. That's like the first
First step.
stage. In Panama, Tower Bank, the second generation of
Hmm.
the family that owned them took control of the bank, and now they are a crypto bank, and they have
Yeah.
their traditional part, but they have the crypto part. They do lending against crypto. They finance real estate, and they are super active in conferences. We're now a really good friend of them because we see each other. They were in Vegas, for example. So that's in the terms of Costa Rica, the second stage, in my opinion.
Interesting. And you think Panama's taking a step further than us on that? Because they've already accepted it.
Yes, because they have a bank. So
They have the
the
mechanism.
institutional part is already there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, our podcast is more in Latin America, so that's a great option. I mean, you and I have talked about that bank, and I think I've sent you a couple times on it and different things like that. So, I mean, that opens us up to the other conversation we want to have a little bit today is on, what would tokenization do for real estate in Costa Rica or Latin America in that sense, right? Because if you're able to then purchase or tokenize a project, let's say as a development, where you have, call it, condominiums or something like that, what is your feeling how this is going to affect us? I mean, I've got my opinion through my real estate hat on that part, but I'm curious on you coming more from the banking industry and the private equity kind of concept. What do you think?
Yes, wow, tokenization is an amazing topic. It could be
We could go all day on. I know. We
yes,
can last all day.
a whole podcast, but in my opinion,
Mm,
with tokenization, you will be able to bring bigger amounts of capital. For example, I'm
yeah.
having some conversations regarding Dubai, and the challenge in Dubai when you're from Costa Rica is okay, if you have an investor of a fund, $400 million project, the real estate project here in Costa Rica, you don't have that type of projects. But if you tokenize different type of projects, you could have a portfolio of real estate through token of $1 billion here in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
So my first comment is that it will simplify the way to attract real capital or institutional capital in the terms of $1 billion. There are challenges, of course, regarding, for example, the registry, the secondary market, the control. But I think is something that could be
Yeah, but
managed.
we live in a digital age. I mean, in Dubai, for example, there is no paperwork, right? All properties are digitalized. So when you go through and you purchase property, everything is done digitally. I mean, our partner company, they're a Coldwell Banker. I've gone through that process, and they have probably one of the easiest purchasing processes I've ever seen in my life because there is no paperwork still like we're doing in Costa Rica. So everything is digital as you come in. The property is digitalized, in essence, as a tokenization, and they basically have everything written down and gives you the complete history, and you can do the transaction digitally sitting in an office instead of having to go through, like you said, in Costa Rica, where we're still going through the registry. We're still having to check, property lines. But on that same token, in real estate in Costa Rica, majority of the lands have actually been remapped right now. And the country is going, the registry is going almost to a full digital format where nowadays you can actually go in and see exactly on a property where things are located, how the lines overlap. There's still a lot of overlapping in different markets here and there. But I'd say in the next couple of years, we'll have that pretty much cleaned up and everything will be digitally completely really registered online, which is a huge step for us. And that step being done would allow us then to tokenize and, like you said, bring in bigger capital to $1 billion or so or more to actually stretch through all Latin America, where you're seeing purchases from carbon credits through tokenization, through um, luxury real estate, things like that. Like I have another group that I work with out of the US right now, and they're basically tokenizing luxury properties where people can buy in kind of like a timeshare in essence, right? But you're buying in where you get X amount of time, but they're in markets where they're not allowing people to Airbnb.
Okay.
Right? So let's say that you're in Vail, right? There's a lot of markets in Vail where you can buy a $30 million home, but you're not allowed to Airbnb that home. It's more of a private kind of sanctuary. The development itself doesn't do it. But if you're an owner, you can, of course, use it. So the tokenization kind of created an open door now where that company for $30 million buys that property and they sell, let's call it 30 shares as 30 owners, right? And so I'm sure there's going to be some regulation comes out to stop this, but now that 30 owners can actually use that property, right? And they buy different ones around the world in different areas in Paris and Vail and Miami and Malibu, and they're allowed now to use it where before one person, one entity was only buying that property and maybe your family was using it, but not everybody else could really use it because you didn't have the resources.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And for example, not related to real estate, but there's there are projects here in Costa Rica to tokenize fixed income portfolios.
Mm,
So you have a productive token. You buy it and you receive yield every month. So that's something that will happen, is happening to be more exact, and it will be used in different industries use cases. And real estate for sure is going to be one of the most interesting use cases.
Yeah, I mean, that's at least the other one. I mean, and to mention that, I think that, this is why you and I also started this podcast was because the idea was to, talk about Bitcoin and the growth through Central America and Latin America, in general, but also, working with the right people, right? I mean, we work with, certified, we're on boards of people that have escrow companies, and that's why we always pitch, reach out to us, let us know we connect you with the right people because there's also a lot of stuff that is coming out where, you know, no regulation is the best concept, but on the other side of that, sometimes some regulation is not bad as well when you're talking about doing real estate transactions or how things are operated or sold or transacted, right? Because you can also go fall down the same realm of why Sue Hef really became pressurized to make all escrows in Costa Rica registered with Sue Hef because people were running money and and lawyers in some sense were holding money, but they weren't registered accounts, and people were using money for different things that shouldn't happen. So, it's really key for all of our viewers out there to make sure that you're paying attention to who you work with, right? Qualify the people, make sure you're working with reputable companies. Ask us questions in our podcast. We can recommend people to you because you and I are vetting people and we're going through different companies. We're seeing which are a little bit more legit than others and things like that, and I think that's something to really look at as our next question would be in here is that, what industries would benefit the most from, tokenization or be this becoming a reality in Costa Rica? And I think that real estate would be one of the most primary ones to kind of really jump on board and just take off with that.
Yes, 100%. Because, well, you know this better than me. Buying a property, a luxury property, move funds to a local bank account. I know cases of proper family office, completely compliance and everything that for them moving to banks here, X amount of million of dollars is a nightmare.
It's a nightmare.
With a token is instant. With tokenization, probably the most important thing is to control the secondary market because you
Exactly.
don't want to have an eight board that hey, I'm in Zapotal and the guy next to me is someone that buy a token without any type of compliance. Those are the necessary frameworks,
Yeah.
but for sure, real estate will be the first one that will have direct benefits.
Yeah. Well, and going down that road, I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, right now, bringing money to Costa Rica or in Latin America, I mean, I have more, use fact here, but it's hard, you have to produce everything from your blood type to your, your bank statements to your, your taxes. I mean, we had a client from Europe coming in from England trying to bring money in, and it took them 3 months just to get it like, oh, because they had sold the property, but it went into their daughter's account and it had to be in a different account for X amount of time. And so those regulations are good. I mean, it is clarifying that this money is not coming from someone, what they would call drug money or CAFTA, which is the Central American Free Trade Act, making sure that monies are being protected. But it's also creating a lot of push where somewhere like Dubai, it was way easier to get money in and purchase something and buy a property. But I think to that use factor right now or that use case, it goes as said. I mean, there's a lot of different things going on in the world, and Costa Rica, I'll put it out there once again, is to me the Singapore and the Switzerland of Central America. I mean, we don't have a military, we don't have. Although we have regulations on how where money comes from and how things are going on, we're not being forced into different boxes like you're seeing in different markets as you would see in, for example, in Europe or in Canada or in the US, right? Where there are regulations that are really pushing people to push back on those things. And so I think this is where our greatest opportunity is coming over the next year or so. As this podcast, you and I start to evolve in this more, I think we're going to see some big changes. And I think you started to see the beginning of that just at the conference in Las Vegas.
Yes, and for example, also in here, I have seen a lot of people from Canada, for example, coming here telling me, "Hey, I'm investing. I want to invest more in Costa Rica for political reasons. They prefer Costa Rica than other regions, and this is why my point about the best regulation is no regulation. When you, I have a technical background, so I always say when you double click that phrase, it's not about no regulation because regulation is it's always important. It's more about hey, as a country, we have a framework about regulation enough to allow the free market of, for example, the digital assets. It's not necessary to write everything and try to control everything, because when you do that, you don't have a free market.
Yeah.
That's more the angle. And something very important is compliance, because you're able to do very deep compliance, KYC, chain analysis about the token and everything. It's just to find, using the available technology, a way to make things easier and simpler. For example, imagine if I told you 20 years ago, hey, I will create an app and you will click and give your name, and an stranger will come with his car, and your wife will get in the car and go. It will be, hey, it's crazy, it's dangerous, it's everything. But there are enough controls, for example, in Uber, Lyft, and all those platforms, to make that
Yeah.
simple process in a safer and controlled way.
Well, it exists. I mean, that drives us into the AI technology, what's going on right now. I mean, I think SpaceX is getting ready to go take their IPO right now, so you're seeing a lot of this stuff happen, and you're 100% right. I mean, the markets and where we're seeing things go has completely changed, right? I mean, as I said, 30, 40 years ago in Costa Rica, when you and I were younger, Costa Rica was on a different plane. I mean, so was Latin America for that point. I mean, I traveled a lot through Chile and down to Brazil and all the way through Mexico. And, when you go through Mexico and you go through areas like Cancun and Cabo, I mean, there's a lot of money that's sitting there right now, right? And there's a lot of infrastructure being now pushed where the money's coming from, which is from alternative sources, which is from cryptocurrencies, which is coming from, the AI market right now. But all of that comes into compliance and also just security. I mean, even myself nowadays, I run an email for my business, but I have separate emails for my banking, right? Just to keep back because, when you're using AI nowadays, I mean, you're literally opening up your computer to everything, right? So, I mean, in general, it can spoof you through everything, look through everything. So, I've even gone as far as opening my family, their own family office emails, just to have something that is more, private to us in that atmosphere, because we are in a digital age now. And whether people want to follow that digital age or fight it, the next step right now is that the world is at a whole new technology main. So where where the internet was the big thing of the 80s, let's call it, or whatever it was, right? Somewhere in there. Then you had the cryptocurrency big thing that came out. Now we have the AI pushing through and space technology and everything that's coming out. I mean, what is that next thing that's coming? But right now we're in the realm of so much change happening so fast that people can't see it. And I think that's where the normality of what cryptocurrency is going to become is something that you and I have seen for years, but something that I'm going to go out there and say, still, I'd say 85% of the world market is not accepted it yet. They've not seen it, right? Because they're so stuck in what we call the traditional banking system per se, or what has to happen. But if you look at the world right now and where the dollar has fallen, where I mean, any market, look at Costa Rica, we're at what, 440 today, 450, somewhere there. I mean, we're just going like this, and it fluctuates so much. And so does Bitcoin. But at the same time, it has held a lot steadier and the growth than any other currency in the world right now.
Yes, yes. And the other digital asset that I love
Mhm.
are stable coins,
Yep.
because, hey, we just said moving X amount of $1 million from a foreign
Mhm.
country to Costa Rica, it could take months. Sending 10 millions of stable coin to
Take seconds.
seconds.
And explain that. I mean,
Seconds.
not everybody might not know what a stable coin is, or our listeners.
Yeah, the stable coins are coins, digital assets or crypto that are pegged to the dollar. So each stable coin is $1, period. So for every stable coin you mint and it's available on the blockchain, you as a issuer need to have $1.
Yep.
The biggest stablecoin company is called Tether. They are around $140 billion in AUM, and their collateral. They are right now one of the biggest buyer of treasury bonds of the United States.
Isn't that crazy?
I
Yeah, I
think
read that.
even bigger than Germany, if I'm not wrong. So
Wow.
I mean, they have that. They have gold. They have, of course, they have dollars. The other one is Circle USDC.
Yep.
where Coinbase is related, and those are example of coins that are very useful, are very transactional. So that's there are three type of crypto. The Bitcoin, that is like a digital gold. To explain that in a couple of seconds, the utilities, for example, Ethereum and all the blockchains like Solana or Polygon, and then the stable coins. So
Yeah.
in a macro level, those are the three type of crypto.
I always do a bunch of trading when the markets are up or down, or I'll hold a lot of money in stablecoin, or sometimes I'll switch some of my accounts and hold it as a stablecoin. We can do different things. I've done transactions on for the house I'm building with a stablecoin, things like that. So I mean, I think it's definitely a benefit, which most people don't maybe understand that. And there's also security in that, right? Like you just said, they're buying bonds, they're buying different things, and so it's in essence, I'll go as far as saying it's like having money in the bank, right? It's just that it's more of a digital platform than people are seeing, which, at the end of the day, most of us aren't using cash straight up anyways. I mean, I don't remember the last time I actually had any cash in my pocket. Everything I do nowadays through Pay or a credit card or whatever that I'm paying off, right? So the times have changed.
Yes, and for example, in the US, the Clarity Act
Mm.
defines that, hey, you have commodities like Ethereum and Bitcoin, you have stable coins, and then you have securities. Securities are all those new tokens that do an ICO and everything. So it defines a framework of who is who in the digital asset world,
Interesting.
and that's super important.
Well, let's end up today talking a little bit about just finishing up in the markets and things like that. So, you and I know you just also went to Miami. Like I told you, I'm heading to Europe here next week to do a couple of meetings there, some stuff as well, and meet with some Bitcoin people out there. But just talking about the markets in general, I mean, I think we've had a really good push. What I've seen in the first quarter, going into the second quarter now, late into the second quarter, we've had a really good push on real estate and stuff that I've seen. I think most of the stuff that you and I have been dealing with when it comes to the real estate department is people that I've actually seen are looking are switching money through the escrow companies to do building, like they're trying to build a house or something. I think we've got another guy that is buying a condo. We've got some, but it hasn't been a massive a transaction. I think that's also because Bitcoin's so to some it's low, to others still high, right? I mean, knowing where different purchases were done between you and I mean, it's still quite high. But I think people like to hold on, waiting for the markets to change. So, for our listeners out there, I know what my opinion is, and I know they always like to hear it. What do you think? What do you think our next bump is here? Are we going to see a little bit of a bull market come up, or we're going to hold for a while, or what do you see a change?
I think that there are a lot of macro situations regarding the war, for
Yeah,
example. Then in the U.S. administration, the Congress election, if they will have control, keep control or not. So everything around that make Wall Street, that is right now the biggest player in crypto from an institutional point of view, very careful about
yeah.
what to
Where
do.
they're shifting monies, where it's happening, exactly.
Exactly. That's the key situation. On the flip side, something really important is that, for example, for Bitcoin backed loans to buy real estate, this is a good moment. Why? Because you're in round numbers 50K away of the all time high.
Yeah,
So you get liquidity against your Bitcoin, and you probably won't get a margin call as easy as if you request liquidity on an all time high.
yeah,
So
true.
this is the type of things that people usually don't consider to do movements, but it's important.
Well, to that point, I mean, I've been saying this whole year. I think it's one of the best times I've seen in the last 30 something years in Costa Rica to buy actually real estate. So a lot of people think that, oh, the prices have gone up. It's so high. Yeah. I mean, construction costs have gone up, material costs have gone up, some land costs have gone up, but you're still sitting in a market where people have purchased land years ago and they built these homes at a cost that was 15 years ago. Those homes need a little bit of work. And it's the first time in our story in Costa Rica where you can buy those homes for, let's say, at $1 million, go remodel it for another 200 and have a house now that's worth 1.6, 1.7 because you can't buy that land anymore. And so being able to lend against your, like you just said, your Bitcoin, I agree with you. Like right now, I've been looking to do some lending against mine because I cashed some out to do some stuff, which was easier at the time, but it's the opportunity to like you said, we're at a low time market, a little bit lower in the market where Bitcoin's at, and we all know that we're going to probably boost back up. I mean, obviously, there's chances it goes even down further, but the reality is it should get back up to the numbers we want to be at.
Yes. No, and imagine I was in Chile like 1 or 2 months ago, and with a good friend of mine, he built an amazing house in the top residential outside of Santiago. If you ask me, that should be a $2 or $3 million house,
Hmm.
and he do it with liquidity against his Bitcoin,
Mm.
and he did that when Bitcoin was at 25K.
Oh wow,
So he's now
laughing.
laughing, and I'm, hey, eh, end the loan. And he said, no, because Bitcoin will be increasing and my house will be free.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Are there any companies that you recommend for that out there that he's using or people are using?
We have, I mean, this is like a consulting process. We have three options that
Okay.
we work, two from Europe, one from Panama,
Okay.
and those are like the three we like to sit down and explain the people how do they feel more comfortable. For example, one of the companies has been in the securities, because this is not something new, so
Yeah, yeah.
they give loans against securities against other assets,
Are
and
there
they
any
just
minimums
include.
in there like that? I mean, if someone wanted to say, "Hey, I need to borrow 200K my Bitcoin, whatever."
No, no, I could say 100K up, you'll be more than fine. It's usually, it depends, but usually is loan to value 50%, and that would be the number to consider.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Anything you want to end up today with, or
No, I mean, I think you need to see the every in every situation, in every stage of the economy, there are opportunities. So
agreed?
it's only you need to find, okay, it's a bear market. I don't say it that bear, but
Yeah, I don't
okay,
either.
it's a bear market. So where's the angle? And I learned this from some clients. The angle is to get Bitcoin back loans to do XYZ. It could be real estate, it could be other type of investment, but there's a really strong use case this with these prices we have right now.
No, I agree with you. I mean, there's always a market and do it, and liquidity is the biggest thing, right? I mean, I think that, we're at an era where, like you said, there's tons of AI companies going to IPOs. There's different things happening. There's real estate grabs right now that are happening. And if you could have some liquidity to put in different things, and you and I, even though I don't run a capital group, but you and I have this conversation all the time, and we have different investors and stuff. So we're investing in building spec homes. We're doing different things like that. But I think right now there's a great opportunity. Where some people feel the market is fallen out. I feel like if I had, you know, a couple $1 million or $10 million sitting on hand, I know exactly where to put it and how to do that. So these are opportunities that I think are at hand. I think there's a really good moment to be doing things. I agree with you on that. So, well, I appreciate you coming down today, being here. Like I said, we're excited to keep this going. If you guys have any comments out there, let us know. We can introduce you to escrow company. We can recommend some lending companies, go through that process with you. We'll be putting things on the comments you guys can post, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you.